And we're back.
We're back. I've been wanting to drink my bubbly. This was
Okay,
fun.
okay, let's take. Is it time? Is it time? Is it time?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. That was so bad.
Oh, sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit.
You
Well,
jumped
the last time
You triggered. Your trigger went faster.
Ooh, when we last left our heroes.
So the last time when Henry wanted to watch some of our YouTube videos, a little plug for YouTube channel, guys.
Okay.
If we reach, how many thousands or hundreds of thousands do you need to make like $1? I think we have 24. So we are well on our way.
Woo! Hilarious.
Anyway, yeah, tell your friends. But
Sometimes I watch us on YouTube and I'm like, wow, okay. We look like 3 little old ladies
you do.
rambling to beat the band.
Yeah, I won't watch none
And
of
yet
those.
we are loved. So Henry was watching, and it was, I think it was just when you and me, and I did this, and I got sprayed by my seltzer, and Henry kept doing that over and over and over and over again. I think we watched about 25 times, and he thought that was the funniest
That's
thing.
awesome.
He's like, Mom,
Mom, you're so...
come as you are.
Yeah. All right. Are we
All
on another
right.
word?
No,
Oh,
today
okay.
is trigger continue. Triggering continue.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So-
good, because I did have something that I wanted to say,
You wanted to speak into triggering? So,
but just you get
Okay.
started.
So let's recap. So what I'm
Yes.
doing is I'm taking a word that is used in popular culture that is being inappropriately and trying to hone it in of what it actually means, honoring that word and giving you guys some ideas of other words to use instead. So we talked about what a trigger is. It is a something that happens to a person it could be a smell, visual, conversation, song that sets something in motion where they can't control and to relive a trauma. So that's what triggering means. It's just like a gun. Something happens, it sets it in motion and they can't undo it. And so their body goes to another place where they are reliving trauma.
Right, it's trauma related.
It is,
specific.
right. It is,
Yeah.
you know, it's not being annoyed. It's not being frustrated. Those are all relevant and real things and important to say. But if you can continue a conversation, if you are not reliving in your brain, if your brain is not shutting down and going someplace else, you're actually not being triggered. You're being frustrated. You're being annoyed. You're being activated maybe or supercharged, as Kevin likes to say. But you're not reliving a trauma.
Right.
So and some people it's actually reliving the trauma, or some people like myself, when I get triggered I disassociate. And my husband can, if he still has never listened, praise to the Lord,
And mine either.
but if he were to listen, he can tell you instantly what I look like when I've been triggered, because I'm gone. And he'll even say, okay, you've left, we're done, this is over, like
You don't respond.
You are
Elvis
not-
has left the building.
yes, we have not. Or he'll say, you know, for me, a lot of like hard conversations trigger me because I get stuck on being able to speak my truth because I was never allowed to. So I get, he'll say, oh, great. Is this when we're going to you're going to go sleep on the side of your bed in the fetal position? And I'll say, yes, I think so for a little bit. And he's like, okay, so when can I re-engage?
Oh.
Like he knows like that point, there's no more. So some people...
That's different than a fight. I mean, like if you're feeling angry with him.
No, I mean, I'm so much healthier, but like I remember specifically when we first got married. So as a child, I was never given any choice about anything in my life, about anything or anyone. And my goal in life is just to make everybody happy. And so I don't understand choice. Like normal people, like even, so then I marry this man who actually cares about choice and wants me to have a choice. And so he caught on quick that there was something up with me.
There were just a few flags. On that.
He was like, there was no such thing as red flags back then, but if there were, I was covering the field with red flags. They were like, flag, 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 flag. And yet, for some reason, he still married me. But he started pushing back. And so it was literally about, where do we want to go for dinner?
Yes.
And I said, I don't know, where do you want to go for dinner? And he was like, I'm not choosing. And he drew a line. And guys, I actually went catatonic.
Did he give you options even?
How
I had to do
recently was
options for
this?
one of my kids.
No, this was I mean, we were first married in our first apartment. And
Okay.
Like
This is a long time.
long,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
25,
Once
4
upon a
years.
time story.
Yeah,
Mhm.
24 years ago.
Okay.
And
Now it's just lazy, huh?
yeah, I was
Yeah.
just lazy. Where do you
Now
think?
your restaurant chooses you.
So, but we were like, and he was like, no, and I was like, and he wouldn't even give me choices because he knew I would then try to turn it around because that's what he used to do. And he stopped. He's like, we're not going anywhere until you choose something. Well, what do you want? What do you think? What do you do? I'm not saying anything. And it literally sent me that I was fetal on the bathroom floor. I had this vision. I disassociated so bad. I don't remember much. I just remember we had this cute white bath mat that I'm so sad that was used. And I was in the fetal position and I was rocking and shaking about where to go to dinner. And then I have no mother memory, just that. And I'm above myself looking down. That's the memory I have. That's how bad I was disassociated. That I could see myself in that position, but I don't remember anything I was thinking or feeling. And Peter was actually, it was back in the day of dial-up. He had dialed up the computer to look if he should admit me into a mental institution because he could tell that I was catatonic about dinner.
Is it because you didn't want to disappoint him and you were worried that
Yes.
if you did, that he would
He would
leave
leave you. Absolutely.
Okay.
It was
Nailed
one.
it.
Yeah, so much. And so that I was obviously triggered, and that's not. I'm really sad. Like I was catatonic on a bathroom mat about where to go to dinner. And now obviously we worked through that and that triggers less. Now I have no problem telling you where I want to go.
But it's 25 years later.
But
So
it's
that's
25 years
probably
later.
the first couple of years of your marriage. It
It was miserable.
similar.
It was
things.
miserable. And then we had children so quickly that then what happened is I think my children saved me in a lot of ways in my triggering because it became a product that I could work on. Like my goal now was to raise my children not how I was raised, and I kind of healed through them, allowing them to have choices, allowing them to have normal punishments, allowing them to have voices, reading to them. You know, I was never read to as a child, and so like I read to my children, and that healed. Like all these different things started healing me, and then breaking cycles kind of healed me. Yeah, so that's what triggering is. It's not like being annoyed and being triggered are two different things.
Yes.
So we kind of
that
talked
hurt
about
my feelings.
Yeah.
That hurt your feelings.
Great.
That
And
makes
that's
me
fair.
angry.
Yes.
Makes you angry.
But learning how to say, and like, so when you hear in the beginning of podcasts or movies, trigger warning, they're talking about that they're about to talk about things that are traumatic and potentially violent. And if you have felt those things or gone through those things, that might trigger you. That's why the trigger warning was brought out, and it's an amazing kindness. So, you know, you might see the trigger warning, we're talking about rape, murder, animal abuse, whatever. And they'll say like, or they'll be like trigger warning, I'm about to talk about domestic violence. Yeah. If that's something that you've, you know, that's a real trigger warning, right? That's not like, this might bug you, or this might make you grumpy.
Well, and then there's
or
age
not.
appropriate warnings where it's like, if before this age you can't handle this, so that's why they have before this, and it's still wildly inappropriate as far as shows and movies go.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say was all of this reminds me of our culture, where our culture is at, especially with social media, and that people are feeling triggered all the time about all kinds of things, a lot of them very stupid, no offense.
Or just, my opinion is different than yours.
Right, my opinion is different than yours, I'm feeling triggered, and it's just like, no.
Yeah.
And also, what you were saying about face-to-face, we as humans would never say almost any of the things that we feel so comfortable saying, that we type, and that we be like, feeling really, all of a sudden I'm feeling feisty about this, the president, or the this, or the that, or whatever. And I'm gonna say what I think. Well, you're sending this out into the ether to no one specific, and you're quote unquote feeling triggered. Okay, no, none of this is okay. None of this is real human communication that is honorable. This is very, 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 very nasty human behavior.
Right. And I think the other piece is it takes out, like, and it might be like we don't know each other's stories, and that's the hard part, because somebody could.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I
do. But and that's why the face to face is so
people
important.
Are misfiring all over the place.
They are definitely misfiring.
This is ridiculous, and no one would be acting like this if we were in a room together.
Right, no one would be. And I think that when we're, especially for me, when we're talking about someone from the other side of quote unquote the aisle, I have a lot of inner people across the aisle from the normal Christendom world. And the thing that I find so fascinating with it is that a lot of times when we know their story, when we engage them enough to allow them to, you can see what their real triggers are. And it gives you a place to have love and compassion and grace for another person. And you automatically behave differently, and they automatically behave differently, and because of that there's this new place of grace and truth, because you can't bring truth to anybody's life unless you have an amount of love and affection. Like you scream, that's what I see, everyone's screaming their truths at each other and screaming that your truth is triggering me and this is my truth, and
it's really just opinions.
And that's what it is.
I feel like the word truth, talk about a word that's been hijacked. The word truth has been hijacked.
Well, I mean, and I'll do that next, the word truth. But I do think that...
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But people use that as a weapon.
They do.
Your truth.
That's
your truth.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but that, what they're doing is, is that you, when someone's saying that to you, if you're able to, like, I believe Christians, we have the truth, right? And we have the Savior, and we have the all-knowing God on our team. And so I expect higher of us. And so I think if someone is yelling at you and feeling that way, and they're triggered or they're feeling overwhelmed, and you're trying, I think we have enough grace to go higher and say, okay, I want to hear you. Go ahead. Say
the whole connect before you correct.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, connect, definitely. And Tom Holland, Spider-Man, said this once, and he quoted, and I thought it was so great. And I think it's a word to live by on the social media piece. If you have a problem with me, text or call me.
Yeah.
If you do not have my phone number, you shouldn't have a problem with me.
Ooh.
Isn't that the best advice ever?
No.
Yes, because
I don't know how I feel about that.
Then if somebody has a problem,
I can have a problem. I have a problem with a few people that I don't have their phone numbers.
but it shouldn't take that much of your brain space.
Right.
Oh,
because that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like
If I want to go fisticuffs.
No, yeah, like if somebody, that's how I let it go. So if somebody has a problem with me,
come find me.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have my phone number, I am not that important in your life to have a problem with me. You need to move on.
That.
That's what that means. Like,
because you can always find someone to fight with if you're looking for them.
Absolutely. And you're not connected enough to correct me.
Totally.
If you have a problem
That's
with me and you don't have my phone number, you are obviously not enough
Just
in my
click
life.
Follow and go about your day. Don't let it take up any more brain space.
Right. Or like,
yes.
and you don't know me well enough to correct me. So get to know me, get my phone number, and then maybe that face-to-face
hear
conversation.
my story.
Right.
Hear
and
my
that
story.
So
that might be another good podcast for you to do, is hear my story first.
yes.
Hear my story, because all of us should give each other one, if we're like, I really do want to press into this. Can you tell me your story?
Yeah.
I want to understand why you're saying this. I want to understand this. I don't just want to blurt my truth, which I don't like saying, but it's like, I don't just want to blurt my opinion or my story to you.
Or even the
At
truth.
you.
The truth. I think one thing Christians were really great at is taking that Bible and thwacking people over the head with it. You know, and I always tell people, don't judge God by his kids. We're such hot messes. That's not who he is.
Right. And I mean, we've talked about that in the past of how I personally was treated in the church with these wild kids, or having 4 children in 5 years and being really stressed out about it. I was shamed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember crying when I found out I was pregnant with Thomas and literally being scolded.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's people that can't get pregnant and you're really hurt. And I was like, I was actually traumatized that I was pregnant again. I love you, Thomas. You're worth it. But I was freaking out. And instead of someone being present with me, I was shamed for that because I wasn't thinking about anyone. I wasn't thinking about people who struggle with fertility. What?
It's not your story.
and then I was so filled with guilt and shame. I went to the women that I knew and asked for forgiveness, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And both of them said, if I was pregnant again, I would be freaking out too. Even so it's judging other people and putting we
What's
don't.
The whole what do you call it? The ship and the plank.
That's right. Get the ye old wooden ship out of your own plank before you try to get the plank out of someone else's.
The best misinterpretation of the Bible ever.
What's
it's
the
stuck
plank?
there.
It's a ship in your eye.
It is stuck. That is how I remember
Ye
it.
old ship in your eye.
I think it's because God knows I do have
a ye old ship.
I literally have a
I
ship
got the
there.
Titanic.
The
In
Titanic.
my eye. And when you were saying, like, us as Christians, I was like, I often feel like I am not sanctified enough to press into some really hard things, and God is still working on my Miss Piggy Pants.
Miss Piggy Pants.
It's real. It's real, people.
It's real. Teaching me how to be. This is what kindness looks like.
Right.
In this situation, and this is when you're quiet. This is when you don't say anything, and this is when you say, I'm sorry. Like, you just say, teaching me the right.
Well, that actually is a great segue into what I wanted to talk about, which is, like, what do you do, like, when you're triggered or you see someone who's triggered or annoyed, and differentiating between the two of them, how do we help someone like that? So that's what I kind of want to talk about today, because I think what is happening, Rach, I think for you, if I can use and abuse you as an example,
all the things.
when you're having Miss Piggy, that is something that's going on with you that actually has nothing to do with that other person.
Yeah.
And so if you were able to then look into your own self and say, why is this annoying me so much? What is the injustice or frustration that is causing this dissonance within you? Because that is literally, when you go Miss Piggy, it is dissonance. You're like, like when two notes don't match.
I also turn into a completely different person.
Right.
I literally do.
You get triggered.
Yeah.
So
I would say that's true. Of her.
Yes.
That's a proper use of the term.
Yes. You get triggered and you change, your whole presence changes into a different human being.
Locked and loaded. Son of a bang, son of a boom.
Viking killer warrior.
That's right.
Yeah.
By night. Weak, mild mannered.
And so what that is that's like,
yeah.
I think if you.
But I think so that you don't get hurt further. Too,
yes.
Don't you? Like, I'm going to hurt you first. I'm going to hurt you more.
It's definitely defense. It's a defense mechanism.
Protective.
I hear, is it Lucy from Charlie Brown who's like, I know when I've been insulted. I know when I've been insulted. And she's like flying off the handle. It's like, I identify with all of these quickly insulted people. Miss Piggy, who's literally just like, excuse me.
Right.
You know?
She even has the voice down. It's
really
terrifying.
But
it's terrifying. But what I think it actually is fear, sadness.
But you come down quick.
Yeah.
You come down so
the
quickly.
older that I get, the more, and less that does that even happen. And
right.
God's saying, like,
I've always said, of all the people, I feel like you're the wildest friend in my life in that arena. Do you know what I mean? But like, I'm always surprised and impressed with how quickly
you switch off.
And even you just own it, and you're so humble so quickly, and so.
And if you push back on you,
there's no pride there. Yeah. When it's all said and done, which I think a lot of people, I think I struggle with that. Like,
I struggle with
I'm
that.
sorry, but you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Whereas you're just like, I'm so sorry. Done. End of story. So.
Well, and
it comes from hurt. I think that the root thing is hurt and not being validated in a whole childhood. And so as an adult, and also as an adult, having a lot of people in my life that were also not validating,
Right.
and in some cases,
Right.
a whole village full
Yes.
in multiple arenas, and so never finding my wings, and that causing me to be very in defensive mode. Are you gonna shoot another arrow in my wings?
Well, before you do, I'm going to pummel you with a grenade.
I'll rip yours off.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the one thing I have noticed with you, if you love you well, so like me and Amy, or like even like if you go Miss Piggy at me, which she does often, ish, yeah, you know, once in a while, not a ton, but like we've been friends for
life.
since we were 8 years old, so like it's
a safe place.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll say something to me, and there's times where I don't even push back because I'm like, that's not even her, and that I can just let it slide.
That's a true friend, by the way.
And I'm at a place now that I can just push back instantly and be like, hey now.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is say hey now, and you're like, I'm so sorry. And like you and I can usually help you.
Yeah.
So what is this really about? And we can deconstruct it. And then usually it doesn't happen. Like one thing, you are kind of like David in the Bible who like sins really big, but then when he's corrected, he doesn't do it again. Like you'll not do that thing to me again.
It's a long checklist though.
I know. So,
I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
Filter.
Look at you. Sanctification.
Oh, you're great, Paige.
You are. No, but I think that's what it is. That you're being triggered when you go Miss Piggy, and it has nothing to do, like that situation that like a teacher, like let's say because when it's your kids, you get triggered quickly because you didn't feel safe. You know, you don't feel like you were advocated well and so you're gonna over advocate.
Yes.
For your children, and so like. If a teacher says something to your child, and a normal
an imaginary situation.
and if we could take you out of it and take your child out of it, it's like a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. What might have happened? It could be a 4.
Okay.
If it happened to my child, it would be a 4.
Okay, a 4 out of
10.
Oh, okay.
But for you, that 4 is a 44.
I was gonna say it registers off the charts.
Yes. And so
inexcusable.
Yeah.
And I probably go the other way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like not a you're fine, but I am like, okay, like, or I'll share stories of injustice to me in school and be like, you know, we do need to forgive and we need to like just like a little injustice or whatever. Like I'm not going to go to the and I'll ask them, but for the most, you know, once in a while I'll say, do you want me to talk to your teacher about it? It's like, heck no. I'm like, they just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And like, you're right, like that was wrong. But I do say, you know, just to give you perspective, I was a teacher for many years too. Like she's got eyeballs on 20 of you. So it's hard sometimes to see it exactly as it played out. And I would encourage you to maybe go to her and say, can I just talk to you about what really happened respectfully?
Yes.
You know?
Or how I feel it happened.
Yeah. Or even just like, I get accused of unplugging a projector one time in the hallway when it was the girl in front of me. Brandy Mikes. Brandy, if you listen to this. And the teacher made me go to the high school classroom and apologize. And I was waiting for Brandy to say, oh no, that wasn't her, it was me. And she didn't. She just stood there. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And too, it's mortifying when you're a little kid, right? But I was like, okay, you know, and I was like, I'm sorry, I unplugged your projector.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
But I was multiple times finding out. Well, with different situations.
And I was so offended and hurt and mad at Brandy. But then that was my most favorite teacher of all. I loved her so much, and I was so deeply offended by her. But then by the end of the day, she never like. I didn't go to her and say, you know, it actually wasn't me. I can't remember how it played out, but she like had me come sit by her at lunch. So I think it was like her way of like
snuggling.
I still love it. Yeah. And
I do that when I
and so and it was over, it was fine, but I just said it happened to Lundy in gym class, and I was like, you know, you can choose to forgive her, or this is your most favorite class of all time, or because she didn't want to do gym anymore. I was like, it'd be so sad for you to hate gym the rest of the year. Do you know what I mean? And so anyway, she did get over it. Took her a little bit of time, but anyway, but those are also life lessons too, right? For all of life,
right? So
I will confess that this year.
Hold on, guys. I think we're about to be shocked.
Even this month. Not this month. It's only the 3rd, but last month I have had to as you say, I've had to apologize so many times and many times to teachers. And because it's like, I have my child with you, I'm trusting you with my child for 7 hours every day. Things will happen. And I go into champion mode, and I was like, I just pull out my sword as a mama, and I spread my wings good and wide.
Yep.
And then it's like,
decapitate everyone's heads.
well, yeah. And always more of the story comes out, and I'm trying. It's very hard for me to not have that initial reaction. I definitely do, like, put my babies behind me, get out in front in my mind, and I'm just like, what did you do?
Kevin's more like that than me. When we lived with friends for 18 months, we had one altercation, and it was because the dads were involved. The mom and I, we were both of the same. We had 5 little boys and a baby and one house for 18 months. I mean, little boys. Caden was the oldest, and he was 9, all the way down to London. And we would always, if there was a spat, would always be like, I would say, boys, what did you do? And she would say to her boys, what did you do? And so we always went into it kind of assuming, like, I know my kid had some responsibility to it. Like, that's a natural thing for me. And Kevin's more natural. We were in the kitchen, the 4 of us, and my boys have always been huge, and their boys were more petite. And so the dad said to Kevin, he's like, your boys are bullies. And Kevin said to the dad, your boys are wimps. And the mom and I looked at each other, and we were like, oh my gosh, guys, get out of the kitchen. We'll figure it out. We'll get to the bottom of it. You know what I mean? But one altercation in 18 months is pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
And we laughed, and we were just like, oh my God. But they were both more like you, like, I'm going to protect my kids.
Well, calling your child, like, it became more about...
I mean, it wasn't said in so many words. It was said that in so many words.
Right.
But it wouldn't have happened with her and I.
No.
Because I just would have assumed, I know my kid did something. I don't think my kid's perfect.
No.
I should probably assume a little more of them sometimes. Like, a little more better. Not better of them, but I'm always like, I know they're my kid.
Yeah.
I know I'm not perfect. So tell me the part you played, buddy, and we'll work through it.
Yeah.
Miscommunication, I find as I get older and older, if I look back at all the things that I got very upset about, 99% it was because of misunderstanding, things lost in translation. So what you said I didn't understand, and then what I said you didn't understand, and neither one of us took the time to get to know each other's stories.
It's all about the story.
Or just to know your kid's not perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
we're not perfect.
Right. And I think, but the bigger, I think it is the story. I think
it's
that's how you help someone is, my friend Dean always says it this way, and it is the hardest thing for me. He said, what would the cost be to allow a person to speak with all their mess and you listen? And not while they're and just listen, not try to clean up their mess while they're listening, or justify your response, already be thinking about what would the cost be? And I often tell him, that is very high for me, because for me, I want to be heard, loved, and validated. And so because of that, when someone's talking to me, I am already playing the story in my head of why I did it, why that was justified, and how can I make them see that I'm not a bad person, instead of just letting them be. And so he always says, I get like this. He's like, your whole body changes. You get bigger.
Like a rooster.
You know, he's like, you get big and you get really intense. And I go, that's my version of Miss Piggy. And then I automatically turn the narrative of how that person who has a problem with me, why they're really messed up. And so what would be the cost of allowing people to just speak and listen in their mess, and not try to fix their mess, not try to clean their mess, not try to judge their mess, just let them speak.
Or justify what they're saying.
And just let them speak in their mess. And then knowing that they have a story. Like, we all have messy lives. And then let that be their mess, and then listen to it, and then process it within your own self, and then receive what is true and disregard what is not true. And it's an equal part. And what that is knowing your story really well. If you know your story really well, then you can own what is yours to own, and you can also let go of what is yours to let go of.
That is what I'm working really, really hard this year and forever probably on, is doing way more reflecting, doing way more trying to talk to the Lord and hearing his voice over my voice.
Well, and hearing the truth over the lies.
Right.
There are
Or the truth over hurt.
Yeah.
The truth over things that have been true that actually did happen, or reasons but not excuses. That's another huge thing.
Yeah.
It's like there's reasons why. A, B, C, D, and E.
Right.
Or seeing a situation for what it really is and not making it something else.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I had a friend say, "What if it all means nothing?" And she said, "I was so angry when she was telling me that." And she goes, "But then I thought some situations really aren't. They're nothing. We're adding to them with our own story, and we're making like a comment that really is nothing, or a situation that really is nothing. We are making it something so much bigger, and adding and putting all this weight on it and all this emotion on it, when it really just." It's nothing. Like, you know, like, and that's when, like, when you get sometimes big with me about something, or you're getting big about anything, and you're telling me about it, there's times where I can say, I'm not making anything out of this. It's not even worth the conversation.
Disengaged.
No, it's not, it's actually very
letting one
engaged.
go in one ear, not the other. What's not?
Well,
You're filtering as she speaks and sifting.
I'm just listening to her, knowing that this is nothing to do with me, and I could put value on it and get super offended or hurt, or I can see what it really is that Rachel's hurt about something, Rachel's feeling really super anxious about something, you know, and I am a safe place for her to let that go. Now, I could be hurt by what she's saying, but it's really nothing. It has nothing to do with me. It's her getting some stuff out, and I would much rather her do it with me than, and I do it with Rachel. I mean, when we were at Deer Wonder, I literally was like, "You're taking a walk with me, and I'm going to say all the things that I want to say to other people, to you, and you're just going to listen to it, and you're not going to judge it, and you're not going to try to fix it, and then when it's out, I won't have to say it." And she was like, "Okay."
Those are the conversations I start with. Okay, 2%.
Yeah. And we did, and we went for the walk, and Rachel was awesome, and she's like, "Ooh, yeah." She even felt, she's like, "Yep, I can see why you think that. Yep. Oh, I feel the same way. I know, it's really hard, isn't it?" But she didn't say, "Amber, you can't say those things," or
no advice.
No advice.
Yeah.
It was just validating all the things I had to say, and then my entire temperature dropped 1,000%, and I was like, "Oh."
Isn't it interesting that we have to speak it out?
We have to speak things out. It is how we were created by God. I literally just shared this with my atheist friend yesterday, and we were talking about some stuff with her, and I said, you know, God spoke the world. He spoke the word. That's why we call the Bible the word. There is power in speaking. And until you can say that.
For good or evil.
For good, yes.
There's power for good, and there's power
Death and life are in the power of the tongue.
Yes.
It's
and
a sword.
So it is. And so, but until, and she was just brewing on something, and I could see it. And I was like, you have to speak this. You need to speak this to this person, because it is eating you inside, and it's not unkind. It's her. It was real and sweet and sad and heartbreaking. And I was like, you're not doing yourself any favors or that person any favors by not speaking it. You cannot write it in a text message. You cannot write a letter in cursive in a card. You have to look that person in the face, and you have to speak this truth, because then you will be free.
Yes.
You can then work through it, but it's spinning when we don't speak things, and it's spinning inside of us. And even my evil thoughts, I had to speak them out to a safe person.
Yeah.
Or those things I was going to become bitter.
Yeah.
And then they were going to be like, one of my friends used to say, chewing crackers. Like everything they do was going to rub me the wrong way for the rest of the flipping week. And they would speak, and I'd be like, ugh! You know, and like I had to get it out of me. And sometimes for me, I have to say it out loud, and then I can confess it to the Lord, because in my own head, I can justify it and spin it into a narrative and you know what? I'm not going to confess it to the Lord, because it's still all in there, but there is a power in speaking that out, and then being like, even if it's in a dark room with just the Lord,
your pillow.
but still speaking it out.
Yeah.
And that's how we help people, and that's how we become a safe place. And that's how we decompress our triggers and decompress
that's a good word.
our irritants and our frustrations and our annoyances that aren't necessarily triggers, but they feel like them. Because I will not deny being annoyed, being agitated, feeling attacked, feeling judged, feeling unvalidated, those hurt. And that feels like a trigger. I understand why the word is misused, because what you're trying to say is this is giving me a response that frightens me.
Yeah.
So what do you do for someone who's in that space? I think me and Rachel's conversation at Dear Wander when I was very ugly is a perfect example. Be present. Focus on what the person is saying and don't put your judgments in on it. Just listen and focus on what that person is saying so that they can get themselves back to the square one. That was the biggest saving of my marriage. When Peter and I, the way we think about life and the way we talk and process information is polar opposite. He's an internal processor, and he will think for hours, and he will whittle it down to one word, and then he'll be like, Bob. And I'm like, who, what? I start always at the worst possible scenario, and I have to verbally diarrhete.
Diarrhea.
Yes.
You made a new word.
I did, and it's a real one. It's a doozy. From the worst possible scenario, and I have to weave myself back to reality. And I have to use all the words. And he has one.
Even diarrhea.
Yes.
Diarrhea.
And I make up
And
words.
new words. Yeah.
I make up words. And so if he starts judging me on where I am way back in the beginning, he's like, Amber. So a lot of times he'd be like, I feel like you're lying. And I'm like, I'm not lying, I'm processing. And I said, you tell the story in your head. I tell the story out loud.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was an actual click in our relationship where he was like, okay. So I said, so I want you to judge me at the end of the conversation, not the entire conversation.
Well, now don't you guys go for walks at the end of the day and you kind of debrief?
Yes, and that's what we do. I use my 4,000 words.
And he uses his one word.
And he listens and he listens and he listens and he listens. And then he usually comes up with the word that I'm trying to find.
Yes. Yep. So good.
Bob.
Good.
Yeah.
Kevin and I are the opposite. He's the over communicator and better communicator. And I will internally process for a long, long time. And in our early marriage, the people pleasing part of me, like I would say, like I would be sad, but I couldn't say why. I couldn't put it into words why I was sad. He's like, I think you're sad because of X, Y, and Z. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's why I'm sad.
Dang it.
And but it was good. So I'm always like, you know me better than I know myself. But I always feared conflict, where Kevin says in my 40s that I don't at all anymore. But almost like I said, I have to know that you're safe for me to be able to say how I really feel, or to even disagree with you.
Yes.
So almost like a permission to speak freely, where I know you're safe and you're not gonna come back with your argument because he's better at it than me. Sorry, that's my mommy calling me. Do you know what I mean? But that's what we had to learn, was like, even as far as restaurants, for, and I had a healthy childhood, but like, like he'd say, where do you want to go? And I would say, most of the time, I don't care because I don't have to cook it. But like if I say, ooh, I'm kind of feeling like Olive Garden, that's me like saying, take me to Olive Garden. You know what I mean? And so when you say, oh, I was thinking Las Palapas, that instantly makes me mad. But I'm like, I'm not going to start a fight over that because that's a dumb thing to fight about. But I didn't feel heard or seen or like I gave my opinion. It wasn't strong,
right? But
I gave it.
Right.
So those are things. He is a better communicator. He is a massive external processor. That's why we go on our dates. You know what I mean? And I can usually sum it up at the end. Like, I think this is
right.
You know what I mean? So, but learning each other is huge. I think it's so important.
And just allowing people, or learning that people are different and that other people don't communicate the way you communicate. Right. So if someone's feeling triggered or upset, you don't have to fix it, but to be helpful, you could listen to it. And then, but not adding anything on. The second one is to be a good listener. So much of my life as growing up, I wish people would have just validated what I had to say instead of telling me what I said was wrong or what I said was right. I wish people would have just listened to me. I think if people would have just let me talk and listen to me, I bet my life would have been a lot different. I bet I would have been able to be rescued from my childhood in a lot of ways, because I think I did send out little mini signals, but no one was listening because our lives are busy and it's not, but like if someone is triggered or they need someone to just listen. They don't need to be fixed. They can't be fixed right yet. They have to get unstuck. So be present, be a good listener, be empathetic. I think, and this is for not just somebody who's triggered, but again, you can use these same skills for someone who's just annoyed or feeling victimized, or like I said, I think people who say they're triggered, it's because they're feeling really upset. Yeah. And so we can still honor that with the same things. I think being empathetic is one of the hardest things to do, because empathy is allowing someone to, you have to get rid of a lot of judgment to be empathetic. You can't look at someone who's making really poor life choices, right? And they want to talk about it. Being empathetic, sometimes you have to let them speak, even though they have done this to themselves. And that's my heart. I am not the most empathetic person. Because for me, I don't have a lot of grace, because I've gone through a lot of crap and I've worked my butt off. And so I don't have a lot of empathy for people who don't. Yeah. And that's not okay, because we're all built differently and we all have to go through it our own way in our own time. And I want to just be like, buck up and get it done, dude. Like,
pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
I do, because for me, like, and so when I remember when I was still going through the beginnings of my eating disorder, I would have women come to me and be like, will you talk to my daughter? I think, and I was like, I am the worst person to talk to your daughter, because she's going to give excuses and reasonings, and I'm going to call BS on all of it, because I know I did the exact same thing. I'm not going to be a good empathetic person, because I'm going to be like, meh, you're lying. Meh, you're lying. Which is not what that person in that where they are right now, what they need. They don't meet me being like, you're full of lies, that's stupid, or you're doing this to yourself, like,
or you're just doing it for attention.
Yeah, or like, people who live a different lifestyle than us, like my friends who are getting divorced or wanting to get divorced, and their concept of marriage and my concept of marriage are so much different. Like, I need to be empathetic and let them speak. I don't have to agree with it.
Now, am I wrong about something? I was taught when I was young in grade school that sympathy is feeling bad for someone. Empathy is feeling bad because you've experienced it yourself. Am I wrong about that? I thought empathy was you had to have gone through it.
Well, empathy is feeling it. Sympathy is like, oh,
I feel sorry for you.
I feel sorry for you. Empathy is I want to
hurts me.
I want to feel it with you.
It hurts me with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to sit.
Okay.
It's like when God says, "Weep with those who are weeping."
Okay.
It is sitting next to someone, and instead of patting them on the back, being there, it's going to get better. It's like, oh man, let's feel this together.
Yeah.
And there can't be. There's a time for truth. But in that space, I think I personally don't know how you can do that and have true empathy. Like even Jesus, when he was talking to the woman at the well, he sat with her first for a little bit, and then he was like, P.S. I know who you are.
Go and sin no more.
Yeah, and right, but he sat with her first, and he knew her story. He got how do you say it again before correction?
Connect before correction.
Connecting. So that's where the empathy is. The empathy is that connection. The next is to be flexible with someone, understanding that this might not be the right time or place.
Read the room.
And, being flexible with if someone's triggered and you have, like, I remember another time being triggered. This is so funny. I was being triggered and,
you got 5 minutes to wrap it up. Kate.
Okay, sorry. So being flexible, like if your friend is being triggered and they're all of a sudden in the midst of a trauma and you have reservations, you need to be flexible. You can't cinch this up in 5 minutes and then head back to the reservations. Like being flexible, understanding, like, and that happened to me once. We were supposed to go to marriage counseling with your dad, actually, and I had been super triggered. Something had happened with my mom, and I was like completely inconsolable. And I was like, just tell Papa D, which I call your dad, that we can't make it. And he was like, actually, it's all a ruse, and they're having a surprise bridal shower for you. And I was like,
oh my word.
oh my word. But like, so did he ruin the surprise? Yes, but he was being flexible because he realized that if he brought me
Yes.
and pushed therapy, like premarital counseling on me, and I walked into a flipping room of late church ladies and probably my mother, who did show up in that space, I was going to be admitted. Like blue
Surprise
papers.
of a lifetime.
Yes.
Actually, jokes on all you guys.
You're gonna watch me have a meltdown. Surprise. So be flexible. Be present, be a good listener, be empathetic, be flexible. Help them identify their triggers. If you're friends with someone and you start seeing these things, like I now know that with Rach, her children are a trigger for her. That obviously things happening with her kids triggers something in her. So I can help her identify that and say, hey Rach, you know what? I notice when anything, so maybe going forward when it has something to do with your children, you need to step back and give yourself some time and process before
3 days before answering that email.
yes, and
Or sending it.
or getting
read it first.
yes, or getting all the facts, or
Yeah.
like here's a list of questions to ask the boys to make sure you've got all the information.
That's my sin, is I don't care about the facts.
I know you don't.
Fact.
You need to.
I'm upset. My child
Then
is upset.
help them set boundaries, right? So exactly, right? Now we know that Henry might know that this is something that triggers you and might use that.
Oh,
And
my
not-
boy's now preemptive. They'll be like, Mom, please don't say anything about it.
or they might not, or if they want you to, they might not tell you all the facts because they're like,
Yes.
Mom
Knows I'm an angel.
knows I'm perfection.
Mhm. It's
Um,
true, all the things.
So help them identify their triggers and then help them set boundaries. Offering practical support.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, so see, first we listened, we were empathetic, we did not judge, we just heard it all, we were flexible, we let them, and now you can start acting, some practical things like, okay, what do you think about these things? Don't ever say things like, like, I think you should do.
You're overreacting.
Yeah. What do you
that
think?
works really well.
All the time. Always do that. Never. But
Great
you
marriage,
could say, okay, so like what today, Peter said to me, okay, what do you think about if we get these 3 things done today, we'll call it a successful day.
That's always good.
Like here's how does that land on you? Still giving them permission to
Yeah.
say, that's too much. Okay.
One thing.
What is one thing? Like helping
Yeah.
them, and then
Good.
practicing and learning how to breathe. You were talking a lot about that, learning how box breathing, learning how to slow your breathing down, and you learning to do that along so you can help the person. So, and people who are in a triggered situation, a lot of times, like in the beginning with me, when I would have really bad triggers, when I would go catatonic, Peter used to put my hand on his chest, and I would feel only thing I could feel was his heartbeat, and I could feel him breathing, and I would slowly just match it. And I used to do that with my children when they would have tantrums, like when my kids were like flipping out and just having tantrums. I remember I'd hold them really close, they were overstimulated or whatever, and I would just breathe, and I could feel them doing it. It's very natural, it's from the womb. Learning how to breathe and helping people match your breath. So that's how you help someone who is triggered. Now, don't be triggered anymore. Just kidding.
It's so simple.
It's so simple.
Likewise.
Go be better. Just kidding, guys. We'll keep talking about this stuff forever. Bye.
Go be better.
Go be better.
No better, do better, guys.
Yeah, no better, do better.
All right, I'll
Well,
get
that one was not as short.
How long was that?
Sorry.
one?
Almost an hour.
Sorry.
But it's okay. It was a lot of good stuff.
You can't break that up into 2 probably to give us 3. Probably harder to do.